Welcome back, fourth graders. I am all set up and ready to paint for my monoprint. So mono means one, and then printing is when you stamp something, but with a monoprint, that actually kind of looks like a painting and a stamp put together. So I'll show you what that feels like. It's quite unusual, and I love it. Just a new way of making art. So there's two huge words I want you to focus on today because color is really complicated. So one word is analogous colors. That's a $10 word. And complementary colors is probably about a $9 word. So two large words that we're using today. But definitely I want you to, if you can't remember the vocabulary, just to understand the differences. Analogous means that you're friendly or you get along with one another. So I have these arranged in an analogous way. These colors next to each other blend wonderfully together. And what they do is very predictable. If I put blue and purple together, it's a bluish purple. Yellow and orange, yellowish orange. When I start mixing colors and I start skipping, strange things start to happen in color, and that's why color is so complicated. And so this is a color study actually that we're doing in a painting. So what I'd like you to do today is think about the idea of analogous colors next to each other on a color wheel. Check it out, color wheel. This is a color line, and this is a color wheel, so it's just a line put in a circle. So with our color wheel, the colors next to each other, which is like a rainbow, again, are the analogous colors. We're going to talk about complementary colors in just a moment, but let's focus on analogous. So I have a large 9 by 12 piece of paper. You can shrink this down if you have a smaller brush. I have a bigger brush, and for the demonstration, it'll be easy for me to show you this way. But for sure, if you want to shrink it down to like a 12 by 9 or something, or 12 by 6, just to get that idea of what, 6 by 9 would be a good way to shrink it. That's half of this piece of paper. Just to get the idea of what we're doing here. So first of all, what we're going to do is create a horizon line by folding the paper. And I would prefer that you don't fold the paper in half, but that you fold it like about a third. It's a little bit more interesting to look at, usually, but not always. And this is my fold line right over here. This is my sky for my fold line, and this is my water because I'm going to be making a reflection today. So a reflection is an opposite. It's showing, it's showing this in the water, showing the sky in the water, but in an opposite way. I'm going to create a feeling on my page of a sunset. You can have a blue sky day. It could be getting dark, so maybe purples and blues, but I want to create a sunset using my warm colors mostly. So when I'm creating a watercolor wash, you want to make sure that your paints are wet. We've done this before in second grade when we did our Gamel blowing out our hair project. Our paints were nice and wet, and our paper is going to be wet. And you actually want to be working quickly because you're working on just a piece of drawing paper. So here I go. Big brushes and big area. So if you have a small brush, like I said, don't use big paper because a small brush on a big piece of paper like this is just not fun. So use the brush that matches. And I'm going to get all of my brush strokes going way off my paper. So have a paint mat down. When I look outside at the sky, I don't see red, sunset, and then white paper showing, so I don't want to see that on your paper either. I want to see sky. I'm using some really juicy colors here and blending down. You're going to work quickly because this paper has to stay wet, otherwise you get stripes. I don't want stripes. I want a blend of colors, so smooth side to side. Now I made it down to my horizon line and my land has started. Check it out. I made sure I went side to side the whole time. I have no white paper showing. It looks like a sunset. Awesome. And that happened within seconds. Now I'm going to create a reflection. So I have to start here and go this way on this side. I'm probably not even going to see any red paper. So using my watercolors and my wetness, quickly getting my water on here, getting a nice wet piece of paper so that when I put my paint down, what happens is it spreads. If my paper is dry and I put paint down, what happens is it doesn't spread. It creates stripes. And like I said earlier, I don't want to have stripes on my paper. I want to have a nice smooth blend of color. So I created a nice sunset, I'm off my paper. All of my paper is colored right now. I have no white paper showing anymore. I have a reflection. It might not be exactly perfect, but guess what? Reflections usually aren't. I have calm water over here and a sunset sky. What I'm going to do is just make sure that my paper isn't shiny anymore, and I'm going to kind of mop up some of this extra wetness because I'm putting my watercolors away, and I'm going to switch over to tempera. Watercolor is transparent. You can see through it. It's light. It's well blended here. And now I want to be working on my tempera paint to be working on my complementary colors, So as this dries for a moment, I just want to tell you what that feels like. Complementary colors are opposite colors on the color wheel, and when you mix opposite colors on the color wheel, strange things will happen. What happens is, usually if you create almost equal amounts, you get brown. So if I mix the red and the green together, brown, orange and blue is going to be brown, and then my purple to yellow will be brown. If I mix just a little bit of, so that's a little bit of yellow, and I'm not even going to put in that much, I don't want to put in that much purple, but just a teeny tiny bit of purple. What happens is you kind of create a softer yellow. The colors opposite each other dull each other down to create like a softer color. So I'm going to look for those soft colors like I would see outside, or those duller colors that I would see outside usually in fall. In fall, you're not going to see, you'll see these colors, but they're not usually this hyper and bright. So I'm going to grab my blue and mix it down. And at first, it's kind of like shocking to our eyes, but the more you get used to it, or you start using it in artwork, it becomes more familiar. So if I'm going to create a big maple tree over here, I'm going to blot, 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 dot, dot, dot. Maybe I'll create a little bit more brightness in some areas with my maple tree. I want it to be kind of bushy and cool looking like a maple tree is. You can see through it too oftentimes, right? I'm going to create more of this duller color on here. Blot, blot, blot. And then I can even create a quick brown. I'm going to use red and green over here to create like a brown color. And I'm going to create a tree trunk. Look at that, quick tree trunk. Put down some ground. And now while my paint is still wet, I am going to fold my paper and gently press it down and print it so I have a reflection of in the water, which is so cool. I'm going to put down some earth here because my tree's not going to be growing in the middle of a pond without earth, and then print it again. So this time making sure that I push down on my land. Awesome! I have a reflection and it's so beautiful. Okay, my favorite color to make is pine green. So I take this green, which totally does not look like pine trees. I grab my red and I mix it up, and at first you're like, oh, this is ugly, you're creating a mess. Check it out though. Once I put a pine tree, let me grow my pine tree here. I'm going to use my long brush strokes. So in that other video, I talked about using impressionist brush strokes. So it's not really filling in shape solid. It's like using lights and darks of a color and using different brush strokes. I want you to experiment with your brush strokes. Grab my brown over here, create a stem, and print it. That looks way more like a pine tree. Love it. Than putting just that hyper green down on the paper, which is awesome. Okay, I'm going to create a little bit more of a stem here. So what I'm going to do along my horizon line here is create land, and I'm also going to create trees. So I can have this really cool fall scene. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some grasses in here, and then I'm going to dull this down a little bit more, and I'm going to create a bridge. I'm going to dot, 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 and create this kind of like organic looking stone bridge. And you have to remember that your paint still needs to stay wet. This tempera paint that I'm doing right now needs to stay wet in order for me to print it. So you sort of want to work quickly or then just print often, whatever you want to do. So now I have a stone bridge. I'm going to print the grass and the bridge that I just did. And then I love that. Now there's a pathway that it looks like like you can go through with a canoe or something. Put my green in. I really want you to experiment this time using these complementary colors because we use these friendly analogous colors in the sky that create this really bright and beautiful glow. And then in our water and in our land, we have this duller complementary color that feels very natural. And this is really a journey and an experiment. I just really want you to play with colors here and do the best job that you can. So enjoy that journey and enjoy playing with complementary colors because they're such an awesome tool to have in your toolbox. And then it makes you see colors in the world also a little bit more real than what you imagine. I mean, everyone imagines our bright orange trees to look like this, but actually the leaves look more like this in real life. So think about that and be a good observer as you're looking around. Thanks for watching, 4th grade friends. Have fun printing and painting, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.